Good evening. The state television company of Western Armenia represents the most important events of these days. Today's broadcast. Turkey has fortified its positions on the policy of Uyghur people in China. Export is the main prospect for Armenia's economic development. Pashinyan introduced government's action plan. Syria reports Israeli attacks near southern border. 70 killed in US-led airstrike in eastern Syria. The Australian weekend Gladys Berejiklian lost 40 of her relatives during the genocide against Armenians. Kamakh. In August, when the Syrian army was going to launch massive attacks against Idlib, China announced it was ready to take part in the operations. Since the Turkestan party's Qaeda's terrorists, mostly located in Idlib, are involving in their roles Uyghurs with Chinese citizenship of Uyghur descent. If attacks begin against Idlib, the terrorist attacks against the position of the Syrian army positions around Aleppo and Hama will multiple, and there is a question, will China take part in it? Turkey obviously did expect it. A group of Turks on February 10 expressed their anger in the streets of Bursa against Chinese authorities and their policies against the Uyghurs. After a morning prayer in Bursa, a group of Turks marched through the city streets, taking with them the flag of the Eastern Turkestan with the slogan "Pray for Violence." Turkish Foreign Ministry spokesman mentioned that Ankara asked the international community and the UN General Secretary to take effective measures to end human tragedies in the country. It should be noted that in recent years, Turkey has helped thousands of Uyghurs to get to Idlib, and they have seized the houses of the locals and settled there. On August 5, 2018, China's ambassador to Syria, Ki Tianjin, announced that China's army is ready to support the Syrian army in the Idlib fight because the fight against the terrorism in Syria is not only beneficial to the people of Syria, but also the people of China, as well as all the nations of the world. He also mentioned that the Chinese army is going to fight against the Uyghur terrorists involved in the conflict in Syria, whose supporters are known to everyone. Taking into consideration the fact that Turkey has occupied Western Armenia for years and violates the rights of indigenous people and national minorities, destroys important cultural heritage, the statement voiced now are against its policy. Recall for Western Armenia that by the Council of People Commissioners of Soviet Union December 29, 1917, decree proclaimed the rights of Armenians of the occupied territories of Turkish Armenia, Western Armenia, and the freedom of self-determination up to the full independence. And on January 19 of 1920, the Allied Supreme Council at Paris Conference de facto, and on May 11 of 1920 at San Remo Conference de jure recognized the Armenian state in Western Armenia as an independent and sovereign state with boundary with Turkey as the subject of an arbitral award by the United States President Woodrow Wilson on November 22 of 1920. Note that the state of Western Armenia is not recognized by UN authorities because it is occupied by Turkey. As a reminder, in the occupied territories of Western Armenia from 1894 to 1923, the Armenian indigenous people was subject to genocide by 3 Turkish governments. The city of Garin is official capital of Western Armenia, recognized by the Allied powers. In fact, here we have unlimited opportunities as Armenia is a member of the Eurasian Economic Union. On the other hand, the Eurasian Economic Union has free trade deals with a number of countries such as Iran and Vietnam, and the geography of such agreements will expand in the near future. Armenia uses GCP and GCP Plus privileged trade systems with a number of Western countries. Thus, there is a great export potential which is not utilized, mentioned Nikol Pashinyan during the debate of the government's action plan in the parliament. He added that the main problem in the export field is to make the Armenian goods in accordance with the high-quality international standards, as well as the presence of respective volumes and marketing issues. Our government will do everything to provide support to the business on these matters and ensure for them a real access to markets. The biggest problem in the export field is to become a country exporting ready-made products from a country that exports minerals. Greatly increasing the export share of high technological goods in the structure is our key ambition. In order to solve this problem, the competitiveness of Armenian goods and services is vital, Pashinyan said. He also mentioned that this is going to be the next key direction of the government's activity when the competitiveness of the economy should greatly increase through a balanced tax system and constant increase of labor productivity. Israeli tank shells hit a hospital and an observation post in Syria's southern province near the border with Israel, reported Syrian state media, adding there had been only material damage. In response, the Israel military said that it does not react to foreign reports on attacks in Syria. The report came after Russia warned Israel on Friday that it must stop conducting airstrikes in Syria, according to the Russian Sputnik News. With regard to the latest Israeli attacks, we said that such attacks on sovereign Syrian territory should be stopped and excluded, mentioned Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Vershinin. Any strikes destabilize the situation even more. No one should conduct actions in Syria that go beyond the scope of anti-terrorist objectives. At least 70 people, including 7 children, have been killed in a U.S.-led airstrike in eastern Syria. This came as a result of the U.S.-led shelling on the Islamic State in the eastern countryside of Deir al-Zor province, said the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The shelling also led to the killing of 28 Islamic State militants. Earlier in the day, state news agency SANA mentioned that 4 civilians were killed by U.S.-led airstrikes on the same area. On Saturday, the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces started on the final stage of attacks against the Islamic State in Eastern Europe. On Saturday, the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces started on the final stage of attacks against the Islamic State in the Eastern Euphrates River region and Eastern Syria. The Australian Weekend edition featured New South Wales Prime Minister Gladys Berejiklian in an article titled "What Drives Forward New South Wales Prime Minister Gladys Berejiklian," wrote Armenian National Committee of Australia on Facebook. According to the newspaper, all 4 grandparents of Gladys Berejiklian were orphaned during the genocide against Armenians. As she has previously revealed, during the genocide against Armenians, she also lost 40 relatives, writes the newspaper. The ancient fortress and pre-Christian holy place is located in the province of Kamakh, southeast of the city of Western Armenia, Izunga. In ancient times, it was the center of the Lesser Armenia, and during the Hellenistic period, the main place of worship of Aramast. Inani Kamakh has also performed different rituals of royal ancestral worship. In the 4th century, here was the cemetery of Armenian kings. After the adoption of Christianity, the Ani Kamakh temple was destroyed. In 369, Persian king Shaput II conquered and destroyed the fortress, stealing the bones of the Armenian kings from the cemetery. In the 11th century, there was a Byzantine fortress here. In 5050, Turks captured the fortress. It had powerful walls, some of which are preserved up to our days. There are many traces of buildings here, including churches. On the northern side of the fortress, in the mountain, a road leading to the high tower is drilled with rotating stairs, natural and artificial windows. This was all for today. Goodbye.